NASA could regain control of the lost Voyager 2 probe after a heartbeat signal was picked up.
The most distant human-made object in the universe is sending usable information to Earth again.
Voyager 2 was never meant to wake up again. Drifting in total darkness for years, it was cold, quiet, and forgotten. Then, without warning, it spoke with a pulse that should not exist. Engineers first thought it was damage, but then they saw the timing. Something had touched the signal. Something had changed it. As the data reached Earth, old records began to surface and alarms spread across deep space labs. This was not a message sent to us. It was a response, and whatever answered was listening long before we ever noticed. The sudden awakening in the void. Voyager 2 woke up after 11 years of total silence, and it should not have happened. No command was sent. No reset was scheduled. No system on Earth had touched it. Yet, deep in interstellar space, where light was thin and radio waves were weak, the probe powered itself on.
NASA's spacecraft that's been exploring the universe for nearly 5 decades is back on the space agency's radar.
Engineers later said the moment felt wrong. It felt like something dead had decided to breathe again. Voyager 2 was launched in 1977 with the original mission of flying past the outer planets and sending back data. Thus it studied Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. It measured magnetic fields, radiation, plasma, and charged particles. After finishing its planetary tour, it was sent outward into interstellar space.
Wonderful things they did exploring the outer planets of the solar system, except Pluto and all that. But the main attention goes to the golden record.
That meant the space between stars, a place with almost nothing in it. No planets, no suns, no protection. Voyager 2 was never meant to do anything active out there. It was supposed to drift, record background data, and slowly die. By 2018, Voyager 2 crossed the boundary of the sun's influence. It entered true interstellar space. Over the years, its power dropped and its systems slowly shut down to save energy.
Any kind of effort to contact extraterrestrial life is more fascinating than knowing the chemical makeup of a mineral on Mars or something.
In 2023, after a series of faults, it went quiet. For 11 years, there has been nothing, no signal, no heartbeat. NASA officially marked it as inactive. Then, without warning, a signal appeared.
NASA says it has heard from the Voyager 2 spacecraft, which right now is in interstellar space.
At first, it was barely detectable. It was a single pulse, short, weak, but clean. It looked like a heartbeat echoing inside an empty room. The signal came from Voyager 2's exact frequency, and that alone was disturbing. The probe did not have the power budget to send anything new, yet it did. Engineers assumed it was a glitch. Space is violent and cosmic radiation can flip bits in old electronics. This was an explanation that usually fits, but this time it did not. The pulse arrived at a perfect interval, and the timing matched Voyager 2's internal clock, a clock that should no longer be running.
That maneuver actually happened on the Voyager 1 spacecraft more than 16 hours ago, but the data is finally making it back to the Earth.
As they examined the data, something worse appeared. Voyager 2's systems had not turned on randomly. They activated in perfect sequence. Power regulation first, then memory access, then the transmitter. This order mattered. It showed intention. Random damage does not follow clean steps, and failing hardware does not wake up politely. Then came the shock. Inside the transmission packet, engineers found a file. Voyager 2 was never designed to create new files, as it could only send pre-formatted data blocks. And this file did not match any known structure. It was not sensor noise, neither was it in the system logs. It was something else, something added.
The spacecraft were still operating when they reached interstellar space. It's really quite remarkable.
As Earth listened, the signal repeated every 6 minutes with no variation or drift. Each time, a low-frequency hum rose slowly before the pulse ended. The hum sat just below the range of human hearing when converted to audio. It sounded heavy and pressing, like pressure building inside a sealed space. Engineers described it as a warning tone, not because it said anything, but because it felt deliberate. NASA ran checks on every system. No uplink command was found, and no internal timer explained the behavior. No known failure mode matched what they were seeing. Voyager 2 was old, making its computers were weaker than a calculator, yet it behaved as if something had guided it step by step. Then, the second pulse arrived.
It means that the signal just misses us completely, but we've caught the edge of that signal, so that's the good news.
This one was stronger, clearer, and more confident. The signal strength increased slightly, even though the probe was moving farther away from Earth every second. That was not possible under normal physics. It felt like the source had adjusted itself as if it knew Earth was listening now. Silence followed for 6 minutes. Then the signal came again. At that point, engineers stopped calling it a glitch. They called it an event. The awakening of Voyager 2 forced experts to look past the probe itself, because whatever caused this did not come from Earth, and it did not come from Voyager. It came from somewhere else. The strange awakening forced scientists to tear apart the signal itself, searching for what had entered Voyager's transmission. The stalker in the darkness. The moment scientists focused fully on Voyager 2's revived signal, something else appeared in the data. It did not come from the probe itself, but from the space around it. Deep space monitoring systems, which track particle movement and plasma disturbances far beyond the planets, detected a large mass moving in the same region as Voyager 2. At first it looked like background noise, but as the readings were cleaned and aligned, a shape emerged. Something was there, something very large, and it was moving.
We have a 20-watt transmitter on the spacecraft transmitting over 11 billion miles away.
The object was detected roughly 500,000 kilometers behind Voyager 2. In deep space, that distance is close. There were no known asteroids in that region, no rogue planets or any debris fields. According to every model, the space around Voyager 2 should have been empty. Yet the readings showed a defined mass with a clear trajectory. Even more disturbing, the object was not drifting. It was moving with purpose. As engineers watched the tracking data update, they noticed the object's speed was not constant. It adjusted itself in small steps. Every time Voyager 2 shifted its velocity, even by a tiny amount caused by solar pressure or plasma drag, the object changed speed as well. The delay between the probe's movement and the object's response was only a few seconds. That should not have been possible at that distance. It meant the object was either predicting Voyager 2's motion or reacting almost instantly.
The Voyager 2 spacecraft has crossed the boundary that marks the start of interstellar space.
Then came the next shock. Thermal sensors detected nothing. The object had no heat or radiation. Every known object with mass emits some level of heat. Even dead rocks glow faintly in infrared. This object did not. That ruled out asteroids, planets, or any known spacecraft using propulsion. The absence of heat suggested a system that did not waste energy in ways humans understand. Radar scans made the situation worse. When active radar pulses were simulated against the object's position, the returned signal kept changing. Sometimes the object appeared wide, sometimes narrow, sometimes it nearly vanished. This meant its radar cross-section was shifting. In simple terms, the object was altering how it reflected signals. It behaved as if it could bend light and radio waves around itself. No known material can do that dynamically. As the datasets were layered together, a terrifying pattern became clear. The tracking lines showed perfect shadowing. The object stayed behind Voyager 2 at a consistent angle and distance, adjusting smoothly every time the probe moved. It did not overshoot or lag behind. It just followed with silent precision. One engineer described it as something hunting without rushing. Then the most disturbing detail emerged. When the object slowed down, Voyager 2 slowed down seconds later. At first, this was dismissed as coincidence, but it happened again and again. The probe's velocity dropped slightly after the object decelerated. This suggested interaction rather than collision or contact. It was something subtler, as if Voyager 2 was being pulled, or guided inside a field it could not escape.
It's mostly empty space, so Voyager is likely to continue throughout our galaxy for potentially millions or maybe even billions of years without a collision.
Voyager 2 had no engines capable of changing speed like that. It was supposed to coast freely, yet its motion now appeared linked to the object behind it. The idea that an external force was influencing the probe sent shock through the team. This was no longer about strange signals. It was about control. NASA ran emergency simulations, checking every known physical explanation. Gravity could not explain it. Neither could magnetic fields or plasma effect. The only conclusion left was the worst one. Something intelligent was near Voyager 2, and it was not observing from a distance. It was following. Once the object was confirmed, scientists searched through decades of archived space data and uncovered a link they were never meant to find. The old nightmare returns. Voyager 1 connection. A young NASA intern was the one who opened the door to the past. He had been assigned a routine task that nobody else wanted. He was told to scan through old Voyager 1 telemetry logs from the early 1980s. These were dusty digital records, and many had never been touched in decades. They were labeled as useless, outdated, and already explained. But as he moved through the data line by line, one strange burst stopped him cold. In 1983, Voyager 1 had sent a short burst of static back to Earth. At the time, engineers dismissed it as interference. Space was full of noise, and the probe was far from home. The signal was archived, labeled meaningless, and forgotten. But when the intern compared it to Voyager 2's new pulse, his hands started shaking. The timing was almost the same, and the spacing between the pulses matched. Even the rise and fall of the signal looked familiar. When the old static was fed into modern AI systems, the truth became impossible to ignore. The AI cleaned the noise by stripping away random interference. What remained was a clear, repeating pattern. It was not natural. It was structured, controlled, and it carried the same slow rhythm as the signal now coming from Voyager 2. This meant the impossible was now real. Whatever was stalking Voyager 2 had also been there in 1983. It had been close enough to Voyager 1 to leave a mark. It had followed both probes into the deep black, unnoticed and ignored. For over 40 years, it had remained silent, watching and waiting. The NASA intern dug deeper, and what he found made senior scientists go silent. Voyager 1 had slowed down slightly during that same period. The change was small and within acceptable margins. Engineers at the time blamed it on sensor drift and aging systems, so no alarms were raised and no investigation followed. That way, the data was buried under routine explanations. Now that slowdown looked very different. When compared with Voyager 2's recent behavior, the pattern became clear. Both probes slowed down shortly after the strange signals appeared. The timing was too close to be chance. Something had been near them. Something had influenced their motion without touching them. The realization spread fast through the team. This object was not new. It had not just arrived. It had been out there longer than many of the scientists studying it. It had tracked humanity's farthest messengers into space and stayed quiet until now. All of it suggested awareness. This thing knew when it was noticed, and it knew when attention turned toward it. For decades, it had followed silently. Now, it was no longer hiding, and that meant something had changed. As this truth settled in, scientists turned their attention closer to home, searching for any trace that the signal had reached Earth before. That was when they found something far worse. Something was already here. The phantom pulse reaches Earth. The first warning did not come from space. It came from Earth itself. Late at night, radio telescopes on different continents began recording a deep, slow echo. At first, each station thought it was alone. Engineers assumed local interference from weather or faulty equipment. But within hours, the reports stacked up. The same pulse was being detected in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. When the data was aligned, fear spread fast. The signal matched Voyager 2's pulse exactly. The timing was perfect. Every 6 minutes with no drift or error. The delay between pulses was identical down to the millisecond. This was not random noise. This was synchronization. Whatever was following Voyager 2 was now linked to Earth. As scientists traced the signal's path, they saw something deeply unsettling. The pulse did not hit one location at a time. It spread across the atmosphere like a pressure wave. Communication stations felt it first. Then long-range radio systems dipped. Satellite links stuttered, and for a brief moment during each pulse, the air itself seemed to react. Then the power stations began reporting problems. Grid operators noticed tiny flickers in electrical flow. Nothing strong enough to cause blackouts, nothing dramatic enough to trigger alarms. But the pattern was clear. Every flicker lined up with the pulse. It was as if something invisible was brushing against the power grid, testing it, touching it, then pulling away. Scientists focused on the frequency of the signal next. What they found erased any remaining comfort. The pulse mirrored hydrogen's natural frequency, which is the most common signal found in space. Hydrogen emits this frequency everywhere in the universe. It is stable, predictable, and natural. But this signal was wrong. It was inverted. An inverted hydrogen frequency does not occur in nature. It does not come from stars or from gas clouds or from known cosmic events. Creating it requires control. It requires intent. It requires knowledge of how the universe normally behaves and how to flip that behavior upside down. That inversion became the key. It acted like a fingerprint. It was unique and deliberate. It was not trying to hide. Rather, it was trying to be recognized. As analysts layered the Earth signal over Voyager 2's transmission, something even worse appeared. There was a second signal hidden inside the echo. This one did not match Voyager 2 at all. It did not come from the probe. It did not follow its rhythm. This one was quieter, slower, and deeper. This second signal only appeared after the Earth echo began. That meant one thing. Earth was no longer just listening. Earth was now part of the exchange. The realization hit hard and fast. The object in deep space was not only following humanity's machines, it was now interacting with the planet itself. It was sending something directly here, and it was doing it through systems humans depended on every day. This was no longer a distant mystery. This was contact without permission. As the team isolated the second signal and broke it into frames, they understood the danger was just beginning, because buried inside the pulse was structure and something that looked very much like a message. the hidden message inside the signal. The moment scientists isolated the inner layer of the pulse, the room went quiet in a way that felt wrong. Buried deep inside the signal was a thin band of binary code, clean and structured, sitting where it should not exist. Voyager 2 was never built to create this kind of output. Its systems were old, limited, and carefully documented. There was no function inside the probe that could generate this code on its own. As engineers separated the data line by line, the fear only grew stronger. The binary stream did not behave like noise or damage. It followed rule and repeated with purpose. When the ones and zeros were translated into visual form, the screens filled with shapes that made no sense at first glance. Spiral forms appeared first, tight and controlled, turning inward with perfect balance. Sharp, straight lines cut across them at precise angles, never crossing by accident. Then closed loops formed afterward, sealed and complete, with no loose ends or errors. These were not drawings, but constructions. Every curve and angle followed strict mathematical limits. Experts in communication theory recognized the foundation immediately. The shapes matched known methods used to send information without language. Humans had used similar ideas in theory, but never at this level. The complexity was far beyond anything humanity had ever sent into space. This was not just advanced, but refined. Then something deeply disturbing happened. As analysts adjusted filters and ran deeper scans, the shapes began to change. The spirals shifted slightly when processed, and the lines rearranged when measured. The loops closed differently depending on how the data was observed. It was subtle, but it was real. The code was not static. It reacted to attention. At first, this was blamed on software errors. Then it happened again using different systems, different labs, and different tools. Every time the data was analyzed, the internal structure adjusted itself. It was not breaking, but responding. Artificial intelligence systems were brought in again to look for hidden patterns and layered instructions. Within minutes, the AI flagged repeating structures buried inside the shapes. These were not images anymore, but commands and sequences that behaved like instructions waiting to be triggered. The AI models reached a chilling conclusion. The signal was not a message meant to be read once. It was a mechanism attempting to force a response. Each repetition increased pressure on specific frequencies used by Earth's systems. It was not asking if anyone was listening. It was pushing until someone answered. As the analysis continued, another impossible detail emerged. Several of the shapes matched known orbital paths of stars circling black holes. These paths were precise, including distortions caused by extreme gravity. Voyager 2 had no instruments capable of recording this information. It had never been near a black hole. It could not see these systems. Yet the data described them perfectly. That meant the source was not guessing. It had knowledge Voyager could never obtain. When the final layer of the signal was decoded, the result drained all remaining doubt from the room. The shapes collapsed into a single output. It was not a word or a warning sentence. Rather, it was coordinates to a location.
Reset of the probe's systems in mid-October will allow communication to be re-established.
The coordinates pointed far beyond the outer edge of the solar system, deep into interstellar space, in a region that should have been empty. This location was not random but exact. It was placed there to be found. The message was no longer abstract. It had direction. With the shapes decoded and the location identified, scientists began comparing the signal to known cosmic patterns. That was when they discovered matches that should not exist at all. The impossible behavior of the object. The moment scientists thought they had understood the threat, the object changed its behavior in a way that shattered every remaining sense of control. Without warning, it stopped following Voyager 2 from behind. The clean shadowing pattern broke apart, and the object drifted sideways into open space, as if it had decided to reveal itself fully at last. Then it began to move around Voyager 2 in wide circular paths. These were not random turns or slow arcs caused by gravity. The loops were deliberate, smooth, and evenly spaced, forming a controlled orbit around the probe. Voyager 2 did not move to meet it. The object chose the distance, the angle, and the timing with complete dominance. As the loops continued, its speed began to change in ways that made engineers stare at their screens in disbelief. One moment, it drifted slowly, barely moving at all. The next moment, it accelerated to extreme speed in less than a second. There was no gradual buildup. There was no sign of thrust. There was no heat trail, no exhaust cloud, and no energy spike that matched any known engine. Every time the object shifted position, magnetic sensors on Voyager 2 screamed with sudden spikes.
We were on a path we hoped to get to reach interstellar space while we still had power on the spacecraft to transmit the data back.
Charged particles nearby bent sharply, as if pulled sideways by an invisible force. These readings were not weak or distant. They were intense and close, meaning the object was actively warping the space around it. When physicists compared the magnetic patterns to known models, the result was deeply unsettling. The distortions matched equations found only in theoretical physics papers. These were models that described how a warp-like field could bend space itself instead of pushing against it. Humans had never built anything close to this. Most scientists still debated whether such effects were even possible.
That maneuver actually happened on the Voyager 1 spacecraft more than 16 hours ago, but the data is finally making it back to the Earth.
Yet the object was producing them with ease. As Voyager 2 continued to record data, another disturbing detail emerged. The object reflected no light at all. It was darker than the surrounding space, absorbing everything aimed at it. But gravitational readings showed that it was not solid throughout. Internal scans suggested empty regions inside it. It was not a solid mass. It was a structure.
We have a 20-watt transmitter on the spacecraft transmitting over 11 billion miles away.
The shape appeared hollow, like a shell wrapped around nothing visible. That raised a terrifying question. If this was a shell, then what was it designed to protect, carry, or hide? The loops around Voyager 2 began to tighten. Each pass brought the object closer than the last. Instruments showed focused bursts of energy sweeping across the probe's surface. These bursts moved in straight lines, then curved, then stopped, as if mapping Voyager 2 piece by piece. This was not curiosity. This was inspection. Every antenna, every sensor, and every system on Voyager 2 was scanned in sequence. The object behaved like it was reading the probe, learning it, and confirming something it already expected to find. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the scanning stopped. Without slowing down, the object pulled away from Voyager 2 in a straight line, climbing to speed levels that broke tracking systems. In seconds, it was no longer circling. It was moving with purpose, and its path was not random. It was moving in the direction of the coordinates hidden inside the decoded signal. As scientists watched the object disappear into the dark, one realization settled heavily over the room. Whatever power controlled this thing was not reacting anymore. It was executing a plan, and that plan did not end in deep space.
By finding the probe's carrier signal, NASA was able to confirm that Voyager 2 is still broadcasting.
The final transmission, a warning, not a greeting. The most terrifying moment did not come when the object left Voyager 2. It came seconds later, when Voyager 2 reacted on its own one final time. Without any command from Earth, and without any scheduled task remaining, the probe released a last burst of data. After that, it went silent again, this time with no sign it would ever wake up.
Only spacecraft that's gone by Neptune. Everything we know about those planets we know from Voyager.
Inside that final burst was not raw data or sensor noise. It was structured and intentional. At its center sat a single symbol that repeated again and again with no variation. It showed a spiral collapsing inward, tightening until it crushed itself into nothing. Researchers immediately interpreted ear as an instruction. When AI systems compared the symbol to known communication systems, the meaning became deeply unsettling. Similar collapsing spiral patterns exist in human emergency broadcasts. They are used to mark return paths, quarantine zones, and restricted corridors. They do not mean welcome. They mean danger ahead and retreat immediately. This forced scientists to confront a horrifying shift in perspective. The stalker object was never approaching Voyager 2 out of curiosity. It was not studying humanity as a possible contact. It was reacting to movement. Voyager 2 was heading somewhere it should not go, and the object intervened to stop it. This changed everything. The object did not destroy Voyager 2 or disable it violently. Instead, it slowed it, scanned it, embedded code into it, and redirected attention back toward Earth. That behavior matched something far more disturbing than aggression. It matched containment.
A lot of these particles stick together and grow into larger and larger particles.
Containment meant Voyager 2 had crossed into a controlled region of space. It meant there were boundaries humanity did not know existed. It meant someone or something was enforcing those boundaries long before humans were advanced enough to notice them. The location hidden inside the signal was not an invitation. It was not a destination, but a marker pointing to a region of space that functioned like a borderline. Cross it, and something responds. Voyager 2 crossed it by accident, and future missions would not. That realization triggered panic inside closed scientific meetings. Humanity was no longer dealing with the question of whether we were alone. We were dealing with the possibility that we were being managed. The object did not chase Voyager 2 because it was weak. It chased it because it was early. Now Earth is no longer early. If that final transmission was a warning, then it was not meant for a probe drifting in the dark. It was meant for the planet that built it. And the most terrifying truth is simple and unavoidable. Something out there knows where we are now, and next time it may not send a warning. The most dangerous implication is this. Our technology has crossed a threshold.
Both spacecraft were still operating when they reached interstellar space. It's really quite remarkable.
Voyager 2 did not trigger the response because it was powerful. It triggered it because it was predictable. Its path, speed, and signals followed human-made logic. The object understood that logic instantly. That means our methods of exploration were now readable, traceable, and easy to track. The object also did not destroy Voyager 2. It influenced it and altered its behavior without force. If such a system could guide, slow, or redirect a probe in deep space, then similar interference near Earth could disrupt satellites, navigation systems, or defense networks without any obvious attack. This introduced a new fear: conflict without violence. There would be no explosions or invasion fleets, just pressure on systems humanity depends on. Communications could fail, orbits could drift, and signals could be altered subtly enough to cause chaos without leaving proof. Exploration has always moved forward without asking permission. Now there is the possibility that permission existed, and we do not have it. Researchers now believe the event with Voyager 2 means Earth has been flagged, and from that moment on, every step into the dark carries the risk of crossing another invisible line, one that might not end with a warning at all. Make sure to click the cards on the screen now for more interesting videos.